Hi guys, today on the table I finally got my hands on Vestax 08 Pro. So this one was like one of the last hurrahs for the Vestax brand. I just got this in. Unfortunately, there's some damage to it thanks to the good old postal service. So I'm going to have to replace this toggle switch. But anyway, we're going to open this little guy up. We're going to clean the volumes and see what the inside looks like. There's a whole lot of stuff going on this mixer. I've always wanted to get my hands on one of these. Crossfader itself, you can actually adjust the fader cut right here. So it's similar to the fader cut on the hack mixers, although with this one you can actually dictate how much cut in time you want on the left side and the right side of the crossfader. You got your crossfader reverse, you have your input faders, your volume fader, curves of course. On the back of the mixer there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. So you got your regular RCA outs, you have some XLR outs, you have your effects 1 and 2. I think this thing was actually MIDI capable too, from what I remember. Let's get into this thing here. So we're gonna take off all these knobs, and there's a couple of screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like the person I got this from took my idea and they put some laminate paper on here to protect the paint, so that's kind of cool. I'll have to replace that myself, but let's take these screws out here. You have of course your power button here, your booth out, on, off. You have your mic, you have your session in, your monitor select, so you can do master, session, aux, or Q for your headphones. Of course it has the 3-band EQ, kind of like the 07 Pro, where you actually have your own analog. You can, sliders as opposed to the twist knob potentiometers. On this side, this is for your effects. Of course, you can actually switch from input 1 to input 2. You have your program reverse, so you can switch the volumes. This is for your effects here. And then, of course, dry and wet EQ. Back to taking this off. So we have all the screws out. Then this whole plate comes off. Looking on the inside, it's pretty much the same layout as any other Vestax mixer, 07 Pros, whatever. So let's take the crossfader out here. I just want to see what we got going on here, because this crossfader was supposed to be digital or something like that. I don't know. For what I see here, it looks just like a regular PCV fader. We're gonna pop those two little clips there, and we're gonna open that up, and it's basically just regular PCV faders, just like that. And you can get that out of the way. Alright guys, so I'm going to clean all these faders out. I'm gonna need to replace this toggle switch here. Hopefully everything else on this mixer is working good. I haven't really hooked it up yet. I did check it for power. Let's get these faders cleaned up. You all know how I like to clean my faders. All of these faders are going to be the same as the normal 07 Pro PCV faders. So apparently everything that's done digitally is going to be done in the mixer, as far as being able to set your curve control and do all that stuff. So the faders themselves are going to be just the regular PCV faders. What I need to do is I need to clean these up, because this isn't acceptable. This is way too stiff. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean up the bars. We're going to put some lube on the bars. And so for this one, what we're going to do is we're just going to use a toothbrush, and we're going to use some rubbing alcohol. This actually cleans it good enough, at least to my liking. This thing really wasn't like too dirty. I thought the 08 Pro was gonna have a little bit more going on, almost like a non-contact fader, you know, similar to like the Samurai mixers, or even the newer, it was at the 05 Pro 4, I think is what it was, that had the non-contact faders. So I mean, that feels terrible. I ain't gonna lie. I don't know. That just feels bad. These things are super tight. This is crazy. I don't know. I mean, I'd never remember PCV faders being this bad. I mean, all of these faders are just, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know what the heck. I don't know. I've never had that. I mean, I'll even show you. I have 07 Pro, and I mean, this one, it's not even lubed up, but man, at least I can do that, you know, with it. But this, like it, and that's with lube on it, man. This is crazy tight. Alright, so what I'm going to do to bend these out is I'm just going to take some needle nose pliers, and then I'm going to kind of anchor myself on here, and then this little tab right here, I got to kind of pull it down a little bit just to get that space to get this bar out of here. So that's what I'm going to do with this. I got to be, you know, fairly careful. You don't want to bend it too much because you have to bend it back, and you can only bend these things so many times. See, just like that. And then we'll bring that one, and there's that, just like that. Now look at this, like when I take it away from the board, that's pretty damn smooth. So maybe it's just these springs, man. If I bend them down a little bit here, like that, just real carefully. I think we need to, well, doing that, basically, I still have to make sure that I don't bend them too far down, because if it doesn't make contact with the board, then it's not going to send any signal whatsoever. So it'll just be an open signal, because this little wiper won't go across the board to send the signal. Now look at that. Look how much better that is. That made all the difference in the world. But like I said, what we need to do now is we need to make sure that all of these are touching the tracks, because if they're not, then it is not going to matter how smooth it is. Once you bend these down, you're going to have to get something flat like a card or something to get underneath these. You're going to have to start bending them back up, you know, little by little, just so that you get just enough connection on that circuit board that it makes a good solid connection, but it's not pushing against the board, you know, where it's dragging. Specifically because if you start putting pressure and it's barely touching, when you start putting inward pressure on the fader, then those little contacts are going to go, you know, away from the board, and then you're going to start getting bleeding because it's not going to make that connection anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this card, I'm just going to slide it right underneath, just like this, okay? And then what I'm going to do is evenly, I'm just going to start to push this up just a little bit, like that, okay? Okay, and then you want to look at them both and make sure that they're about even, which they look about even there. There goes the bar. And then and then you can put it back in the fader and check and make sure that it's sliding right. Be real careful. See those little they're like little wires, like sweeping wires, so they're little tiny fingers, and if you bend those or if you break them, then this is pretty much just a done deal. There's no fixing that. And this is all trial and error, guys. Like, there's no specific height that I know of, or that I can give you guys. So you just gotta go off of feel, and hopefully eventually you'll get it right. And we're gonna try to do this without having to bend these little pins here, because there's they can only bend so many times before they start to get weak, and then they break. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm actually pushing down on the bar with my thumb, and then that's just keeping enough downward pressure on the bar so that it doesn't lift out here, and then I'm pushing in a downward motion to see if there's any separation between the contacts on the slider and the circuit board. Alright guys, so here we go. I'm going to connect this back in, push this all the way over. I'm going to hit the start button here, push the bar down as best I can, and then I'm going to start pushing down on this. See, I'm not getting any bleed now, and that's what we want. So now we're going to push this over this way, hit start, push this bar down as best we can so it doesn't land. Okay, and then we're going to push up, and no bleed. Just want you guys to see this. Here's the fader. Look at this. It's not moving. Now look. That's how they should be, and this is kind of how it is. So I'm gonna have to do the same thing with these other two faders. Alright, so I believe I got this back where it needs to be, so I just gotta bend this back. Bend this back up so that it stays nice and tight inside there. So the best way to do that is usually with a flathead screwdriver, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of put it right there, just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to put a little pressure, downward pressure on the bar, and then I'm just going to lightly move this up. There we go. See, so now what we'll do is we'll kind of pull up on the bar and make sure that we're not getting any movement, which we are getting a little bit of movement. So we're gonna just do a little more there and a little more there. Okay, and now no more movement, and look how smooth that is now. And then once we put the lube on there, holy cow, it's gonna be way better. And these are stock 08 faders, so these are ridiculous, man. I don't know what the heck Vestax was doing with these PCV faders, because this is the first time I've ever had them this tight. Alright guys, so I'm gonna put a little bit of lube here on the bars. Remember, you're only going to have to do this if your faders came like mine did and they were just super, super tight. And typically what it is those springs, they're just real stiff at the beginning, maybe eventually over time they'll start to work their way and get a little looser. But yeah, that was just, there's no way you're going to be able to scratch if they're that tight. So this is probably just a step you're going to have to take. I also want you guys to remember, because you can dial in this cut-in time, you really have to dial it in. You can essentially dial the cutting time in so tight that it pretty much makes the crossfader, I guess, obsolete. So you really have to dial it in. The best way to do that is to just let the fader fall. Okay, and when you let it fall, make sure that it turns off completely. and go back down and play with it a little bit, because even though it turns off, if that adjustment is too sharp, it's going to make it so it doesn't work at all. It'll bypass the fader altogether. So you really got to be real, you know, you got to dial it in perfectly to where you like it. See, now it's on. So now I got to do that on this side. So let's see what happens. Okay, so we're gonna see, that one seems good. But just for reference, watch this. I can take it and essentially see it's closed all the way, but because I turn the knob, it pretty much makes the fader, it takes it out of the equation. So now watch, what I'll have to do is just turn it to the right until it turns off. Okay, then we're going to try it again. See, that one seems pretty good. So we can go here. So that seems good. Alright guys, so once I get the fader dialed in, what I do is I run it through a little test. And the best way for me to test it so that I know it's not missing clicks, I like to do chirp flares. And if my chirp flares are nice and tight and clean, then I know that the cut time is perfect. Because if it's too sharp, then what's going to end up happening is the fader isn't going to recognize that the actual sound is ever cut off. It'll consistently be an on signal. So you have to have a little bit of a lag. It doesn't have to be much, but enough so that the timing of the scratch can actually play out correctly. So what I like to do is I like to chirp and flare. And then I do a chirp flare. And that lets me know that the fader cut-in time is right where I like it. The volumes feel exactly the same, and the crossfader is nice and buttery smooth. No more bleeding, so right on. Now I get to play around on this mixer.